Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have Almaz. Almaz was a super secret Soviet military space station program that began in the early 1960s. Basically, there were 3 separate stations that were launched between 1973 and 1976, and they were crewed military recon stations. How they kept the whole thing more under wraps is that they designed them like civilian space stations. One of the stations failed shortly after achieving orbit, but the last 2 both were successful in their crew testing. Although there was success on these flights, the cost associated with them and the benefits of the program weren't matching up, so in the end it didn't go further than there, although the technology used in this program has of course gone on to inform others. In our number 9 spot today we have Long March 2F. Last year in 2020, China claimed to have successfully launched and tested a quote reusable spacecraft, which is said to be a space plane that could be the key to frequent and low-cost access to space, which is a crazy thing to say. While this is very exciting and could potentially help space exploration in very valuable ways, it is said that this particular mission still has quite a bit of mystery surrounding it. It is said that while the launch was viewed by people, the exact nature of the craft itself as well as what it did in space isn't quite clear. An unnamed military source that was quoted by the South China Post apparently said that there were many firsts during this launch, which is why everything is so secretive and secure. At the end of the day, all we can do is sit back, watch, and see what happens. Who knew there was so much drama in the space world? Well, I kind of guess everyone did. I mean, take a look at the space race. In our number 8 spot today, we have Corona. Speaking of the space race, if you're unfamiliar, it was the 20th century competition between the Soviet Union and the United States, and it certainly was something that the world had never seen before. Basically, it was each country trying to one-up each other on spaceflight technology and capabilities, and while this competition had its origins in the missile-based nuclear arms race, it also managed to create a lot of technological advancements in the world of space exploration. Doing recon was truly one of the first priorities of both of these countries when it came to actually going to space, and that is why from 1960 to 1972 a recon project with the now terrible nickname Corona was put into effect. Basically, this project was a series of strategic recon satellites that were produced and operated by the CIA Directorate of Science and Technology with additional help from the US Air Force. So basically the most incredible minds and those with the highest security clearances were in on this top secret mission. These satellites were then used to provide photographic surveillance of both the Soviet Union and China. Basically at the time, everyone was really worried about nuclear power, and this gave them the opportunity to peek behind the curtain and see what was really going on. In our number 7 spot today we have SpaceShipOne. On July 26, 2007, there was an explosion that occurred at a rocket propulsion test site at the Mojave Air and Spaceport in California. This explosion caused the death of 3 people and 3 others had to be hospitalized for serious injuries. While there were details released about this event, the exact specifics of how this happened were kept shrouded in mystery for quite some time. Basically, the explosion occurred just 3 seconds after the start of a cold flow test of nitrous oxide, or laughing gas. The test was because, during the planned suborbital space trips, the nitrous oxide would then be used as an oxidizer to ignite a fuel of solid rubber, and the test was to check that the fuel system plumbing works, and it wasn't meant to ignite anything. There were about 7 people there for the test, but most of them were behind a barrier that is used when testing things like rockets. Because of the nature of the test, there would seemingly be no reason for it to explode, but it obviously still did, and the reason as to how and why was kept a secret from the public. In our number 6 spot today we have Xijiang-21. Not too long ago, China launched a satellite called Xijiang-21 designed to test new ways to clean up space debris, which is super cool and actually really important. This is all fine and well, but here's where the mysterious part comes in. Basically, something else has joined in orbit with the satellite, and the US Space Force detected and cataloged it, and while they thought they knew what it was, it turns out that they don't because it's not acting as expected. They thought it was a type of rocket body, but now they're just left with more questions than answers. Now there are doubts about whether it even is this rocket body or if it is an entirely different object, and regardless, what is the plan with it? This is all a precarious situation as many world powers are testing out certain anti-satellite technologies, which of course would be problematic for all the other countries. There's a good chance that we will likely never know the entire truth about the purpose of what the object trailing Xijiang-21 is, but it's for sure keeping the Air Force on the lookout lookout, and the rest of us can just sit and speculate and hope it's nothing bad for us. In our number 5 spot today we have the fallen astronaut. This isn't exactly a space mission, but it is something that happened in space and not a lot of people know about it, and it certainly was not something NASA knew about before it took place. The fallen astronaut is an aluminum sculpture that was meant to depict an astronaut in a spacesuit. The piece was commissioned and placed on the moon by the crew of the Apollo 15 on August 1st, 1971. It is next to a plaque that lists the 14 names of the men who died, and the entire thing is meant to be a tribute and to commemorate the astronauts and cosmonauts who have died in the advancement of space exploration. This wasn't cleared prior to being done, but I think the important thing is that it was done. The sacrifice of those people cannot be overstated, and it was for the benefit of us all. Those people were brave and brilliant, and they deserve to be commemorated in the best way possible, on the moon itself. In our number 4 spot today we have X-37B. In 2009 at NASA's Kennedy Space Center, they received a mysterious visitor at the Air Force's super secret X-37B spaceplane returned from orbit. This spaceplane went on a record-breaking mission as the unmanned spacecraft was in orbit for the last 780 days before autonomously returning to Earth. While we obviously know about the return of this craft, we will likely never know about exactly what went on. The most information we have is that the Air Force Research Laboratory used the spaceplane as an orbital platform to conduct highly classified experiments. That is both super cool and super terrifying. Apparently the spaceplane deployed a few small satellites, and the experiments were meant to test different technologies from avionics to advanced propulsion systems. The return of this spaceplane actually marked the 5th successful mission for the plane, which is super impressive. While being very secretive, this plane captured the attention of many amateur spy satellite hunters, but it proved to be difficult to keep tabs on because the spaceplane had the ability to alter its orbit in space. That means it requires a lot of vigilance to keep track of, exactly like a super secret plane should. In our number 3 spot today we have Artemis I. This one is less of a top secret mission and more so on the side of being one you maybe haven't heard of because it hasn't quite happened yet. Artemis I is a planned uncrewed test flight that's a part of NASA's Artemis program. The Artemis program is a United States-led international human spaceflight program. Basically the goal is to return humans to the moon, most specifically the South Pole area of the moon. The aim is to have humans there by 2025, and if successful, this would be the first crewed lunar landing mission since Apollo 17 that took place in 1972. That's wild! There's people in space right now, and we haven't taken a trip back to the moon since 1972? I'm just glad we're working on heading there. Artemis I is expected to launch no earlier than February of 22, but it is likely to get pushed back until the summer. And while we wait with bated breath, making sure everything is fully prepared for the mission is more important than rushing. This mission will be the first flight of the Orion MPCV, and it will be the certification for the Orion spacecraft as well as the Space Launch System launch vehicle to see if they are ready for crewed flights. If all goes well, crewed flights will begin with the second flight test, Artemis II. In our number 2 spot today we have an entanglement. Not too long ago, actually just over a week ago as of filming this video, Russia successfully launched a classified military satellite that is said to be a part of Moscow's early warning anti-missile system. Just shortly after this, like we're talking just hours after this, China also had a space launch. They launched their Xi'an-11 satellite into space, which is thought to be in a testing or trial phase right now, with its eventual mission being kept a secret. While all of this is of course fine and well, the one concerning thing is that people are starting to speculate that perhaps these missions might be linked and that there is a possibility that Russia and China are working together out in space. Who knows really, and there's a high chance that this is just a space coincidence, and I'm not trying to start a space gossip column. Either way, whatever this test satellite is that China launched, we don't know what it will one day be used for, but we can all wait together because whatever it is, it's likely to be probably exciting. In our number 1 spot today we have the Manned Orbiting Laboratory. Okay, so you remember the Soviet Union's secret Almaz mission we talked about at the beginning of this video in number 10? Well, here's another mission that was like in response to that. Basically, this program called the Manned Orbiting Laboratory was run by the Air Force and the intelligence community's National Reconnaissance Office, and the goal of it was to spy on and throw the Soviet Union off track. Some of the documents in this mission have now been declassified, and according to them, one of the goals was to knock some of Moscow's satellites satellites out of orbit or to fire projectiles at them. They even wanted to try and capture one of the Soviet satellites in space and then basically send it back down to Earth so that they could study it. That's wild! And here's the thing that I couldn't tell you before about the Almaz that I can tell you now. Moscow equipped their secret space station with a rapid-fire cannon in order to stop any of this from happening. I seriously feel like I'm watching some sort of space action movie. I can't believe these are real things that happened and were created in the 60s and 70s of all the times.
And we're starting off the list with something pretty exciting. Possible alien megastructures on Tabbys star. So Tabbys star, scientifically known as KIC 8462852, which I think is a much catchier title. Tabbys star, just a bit of a mouthful. But it's become pretty popular in recent years. Astronomers have spotted unusual and irregular dimming patterns on the star. The star's brightness dims unpredictably, and at times way more than what's expected for your typical star. So because of the strangeness that seems to be going on with this star, it's led some to speculate that there could be alien megastructures on it. And yes, even scientists are saying it's a possibility. I know it sounds wild, but the idea is that advanced extraterrestrial civilizations might be constructing massive structures like Dyson spheres or swarms around the star. And the purpose of these hypothetical megastructures could be to intentionally block or harvest the star's light to be used as energy. This would cause the dimming effect that we see. Now, this is just one speculative hypothesis. There are others, but it's pretty cool to think that this may be a genuine sign of life out there in space. Next, let's talk about fast radio bursts. So fast radio bursts, or FRBs, are powerful, fleeting signals from deep space that last just a fraction of a second, up to 3 seconds at the most. Scientists use radio telescopes to detect these bursts, but they're still not exactly sure what causes them. One theory is that FRBs could be born from cataclysmic events like collisions between neutron stars and black holes, creating ripples in space-time that generate these intense signals. And there is also the possibility that they come from advanced extraterrestrial civilizations. What makes FRBs so strange, though, is the amount of energy that they send out. In just a millisecond, these bursts release as much energy as our sun emits in 3 entire days. And what's frustrating, though, is that they appear so sporadically, it's really tough to sit down and study them. So while there are possibilities as to what could be causing these signals, they're still pretty much a complete mystery. The Great Attractor. Now that sounds like some cosmic horror right there, and it kinda is. The Great Attractor is a massive gravitational area of the universe that's pulling our Milky Way galaxy and numerous other galaxies toward it. And yeah, that's kind of scary. The Great Attractor was first identified in the 70s when scientists noticed that our Milky Way, along with other galaxies around us, weren't moving in the direction that gravitational forces alone could explain. Something massive and hidden seemed to be tugging at everything. Now, we can't directly see the Great Attractor, so astronomers have to rely on indirect observations and measurements to understand its existence. It's this unseen force of nature, very Lovecrafty. It's thought to be a concentration of both visible and dark matter, which is the invisible substance that makes up a large part of the universe. More on that later. So what happens though when we eventually get pulled into whatever this thing is? Luckily we'll be long dead, so no point really worrying about it. But a great cosmic force like this, it really does remind us how small and insignificant we are in the grand scheme of things. Next up we have space orcs. Yes, astronomers have spotted orcs in space. Orcs standing for odd radio circles. Not quite as exciting as spotting green goblin monsters in space, but also less alarming. Like, would we really be able to lay our heads down at night and sleep comfortably knowing there were orcs I don't think so. So odd radio circles. These circles are strange astronomical objects, and scientists aren't entirely sure what causes them. Scientists have spotted them by scanning the sky using radio telescopes. They're basically circular formations and don't match any known astronomical objects or phenomena. They're not galaxies, they're not stars or supernova, they're a total mystery, and because of this, they have the nickname WTF. Now, some scientists think they could be shock waves from cosmic events, like an explosion or a collision that creates ripples that we detect as circles, but they could also come from unknown objects or phenomena we just haven't discovered yet, which is pretty cool. We got a very large space rock coming our way, a mega comet. Now, luckily, it's going to pass us by about 1 billion miles and won't be coming until 2031, but this thing really is massive. This thing, which was first spotted in 2021, is the biggest ever observed comet. It's 100,000 times the mass of your average comet. The comet is so big that at first astronomers categorized it as a minor planet. What's freaky about this is that there's almost definitely much larger comets whizzing around out there, and although this one luckily isn't going to make contact with us, there could be another one hurtling our way as we speak. That just hasn't been spotted yet. Speaking of terrifying things hurtling towards us, let's talk about Andromeda. So Andromeda, the largest and nearest galaxy to our Milky Way, just happens to be on a collision course for it. One day it will collide with the Milky Way, and when the Milky Way and the Andromeda galaxies finally collide, it won't be a sudden smash. The process takes a very long time because of the vast distances between the stars, and stars are so far apart anyway that it's unlikely they'll collide individually. But the night sky will change, constellations will shift, the appearance of the night sky will be very different in the distant future. But this collision won't be happening until billions of years from now, so there's no need to really worry about it affecting life on Earth or even distant descendants of humanity. Fingers crossed we'll have gotten our act together and we'll be like far off on other planets by the time this happens. Next, let's talk about supernovas. Supernovas are incredibly powerful explosions that occur when massive stars reach the end of their lives. Now, the good news is that the nearest star capable of going supernova is still quite a distance away from us. We're talking many light years, but what if a supernova was so powerful that even if it was super far away, it could still affect us? What damage could it cause? Well, it could potentially affect Earth's atmosphere. The explosion releases an enormous amount of energy, including intense radiation, and this radiation, in theory, could interact with Earth's atmosphere, leading to the breakdown of the ozone layer. The ozone layer is crucial for life on Earth because it absorbs the majority of the sun's harmful UV radiation. So, in this situation, we'd be in pretty big trouble. We'd basically burn up like in Terminator 2. Next up, we have the mystery as to what dark matter and dark energy consists of. Now, we know there's a lot of stuff in a galaxy, stars, planets, and gas, but when scientists calculate all the visible matter, it's not enough. The galaxies are spinning faster than they should be based on what we can see. Something extra is needed to explain this, and that something is called dark matter. Dark matter doesn't emit, absorb, or reflect light, which is why we can't directly see it. It's the invisible scaffolding that's holding the visible parts of the galaxy together. But the invisible part, dark matter and dark energy, makes up 95% of the known universe, and that's a lot of mystery, energy, and matter. What we see, not just on a day-to-day basis here on Earth, but also when we look up at the billions of stars in the sky, that's still just barely even a sliver of reality. The universe is also constantly expanding. We know it's expanding because galaxies are slowly moving away from each other, but over time this expansion continues to speed up. Something is pushing the galaxies apart faster and faster. Scientists refer to this unseen energy as dark energy. Basically, dark matter is the invisible glue holding galaxies together, and dark energy is the mysterious repellent force making the universe expand. And we don't know what it is. Next on the list we have the Tunguska Event. This was a powerful explosion that occurred on June 30th of 1908 near the Tunguska River in Siberia, Russia. It's known as one of the most mysterious events in modern history. So there was a large impact or explosion that flattened about 80 million trees over an area of about 830 square miles. The shock wave from the blast was felt thousands of kilometers away. Strangely though, there was no impact crater found at the site. This led scientists to conclude that whatever caused the event must have disintegrated in the Earth's atmosphere before reaching the ground. What most scientists think is that this was caused by the airburst of a large meteoroid or comet. The energy released by the explosion was estimated to be equivalent to 10 to 15 megatons of TNT, making it about 1,000 times more powerful than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Luckily, this happened in a very remote area, so only trees were affected, but that also means there weren't many witnesses. But a handful of people did report seeing a bright bluish light in the sky, accompanied by a series of thunderous noises. But of course, there's always been this question as to whether this was caused by a space rock or something else. And finally, I couldn't make this list without discussing the WOW signal. The WOW was a strange radio signal detected by astronomer Jerry Amon in 1977 while he was studying radio waves from space. Because he couldn't make out what the hell the signal was, he just wrote WOW on the printout of the signal, thus it got that name. It was a unique and very strong radio frequency that lasted about 72 seconds and came from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius. The signal was at a frequency of 1420 megahertz, a frequency that's usually associated with hydrogen, the most abundant element in the universe. What's strange is that the signal was never detected again though. Scientists naturally figured if it was a natural phenomenon, it would repeat, but from what we know, this was just a one-time thing. So is it possible this signal could have come from maybe an alien spacecraft? Yeah, it's a possibility. The WOW signal is still known as the strongest candidate for extraterrestrial radio transmission ever detected.
Starting off this countdown, we have the Boomerang Nebula. The Boomerang Nebula is located 5,000 light years away in a large constellation in the southern sky. But don't even think about going there. I mean, just imagine that you did have the capabilities to. But anyways, if humans somehow got there, they would instantly be turned into a human popsicle. Yes, this place is the coldest place in the entire universe as far as we know. The temperature is negative 458 degrees Fahrenheit. For reference, the coldest place on Earth is negative 133.6 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's Antarctica. So yeah, this place is freezing. There's no way you could get there safely without freezing to death. Coming in at number 9, we have exoplanet HD 189733b. And if you guys are liking this video so far, then make sure you hit that thumbs up button because it really helps us out. This planet would take your life the second you step foot on it. First off, its wind is incredibly strong. It blows up to 5,400 miles per hour. That's 7 times the speed of sound. You just end up being spiraled around the planet until you die. But if you somehow survive that, then you definitely wouldn't survive its rainstorms. Apparently its rain feels like shards of glass. So, you'll get sliced up from it. Happy travels. In our 8th spot, we have the pulsar star PSR B125712. This star is a collapsed core from an exploded star, and it's surrounded by 3 zombie planets. Yeah, NASA actually refers to them as zombie planets. What happens if you get too close to the star and its planets, you ask? Well, according to NASA, and I quote, "This undead star spins twin beams of radiation that could incinerate a spaceship foolish enough to come too close." NASA continues on by saying, if you were to land on one of its orbiting planets, you would find sickly irradiated auras to light up your certain death. So there you go. Cancel your summer plans, no one's going there. Moving on to number 7, we have HD 80606b. Here we have a gas giant. Now this planet looks creepy with this blood red flamey surface. Seriously, looks like a planet from hell. In fact, it's got some hell-like temperatures. The temperature can go from 1000 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 500 degrees Celsius, to 2200 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 1200 degrees Celsius. It can get that hot in a matter of hours. And guess what? Its nights are actually hotter than its days. It's completely weird. Some even say going on that planet would feel like getting blasted alive with a blowtorch. So, that's always fun, right? Coming in at number 6, we have RxJ1347. I'm just gonna call it RxJ for short. So RxJ is a massive galaxy cluster surrounded by a gas cloud in the constellation Virgo. It's around 5 billion light years away from the solar system, and it's considered the hottest place in the universe that we know so far. It's thought that this was created as a result of 2 galaxy clusters colliding. Now, guess how hot this place is? Seriously, take a wild guess. Comment down below. Done? Well, it's 100 million degrees Celsius. Another source said that it's up to 3 million degrees Celsius. Needless to say, that is burning hot. It could melt you in a second. In less than a second. Yikes. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with Boötes Void. This is considered one of the spookiest places in the cosmos. It's also referred to as the Great Nothing. Now, doesn't that sound like a place you want to visit? It gets its name because it's one of the largest known voids in the universe. In fact, it's also called the Super Void. It was discovered by astronomer Robert Kirshner back in 1981. It's located in the constellation of Boötes, hence its name. And it is massive. It's about 330 million light years in diameter. That's approximately 0.27% of the diameter of the observable universe. Yeah, it's an incredibly big void. But it's still unknown how voids are present and being formed. But it's best that we just stay far away from them as possible. Moving on to number 4, we have Venus. Yes, a planet in our solar system that you really shouldn't visit. Bam, there goes my weekend plans. Anyways, so the farther planets are away from the sun, obviously the cooler they get. Well, that's not the case for Venus. It may be behind Mercury, but it is definitely way hotter than Mercury. In fact, it's the hottest planet in our solar system. Basically, its dense atmosphere traps all the heat in. As a result, the temperatures reach 880 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 471 degrees Celsius. It's hot. Spacecrafts that have landed there have only survived for a couple of hours before being completely destroyed by the heat. So imagine what would happen if humans took a step on that planet. Yeah, it wouldn't be pretty. Moving on to number 3, we have Gliese 1214b. This is another planet that could cook you alive. So it was first discovered in December of 2009, and it's located 42 light years away from Earth. Now, this planet is super weird. Despite it being super hot, 200 degrees Celsius, which is 392 degrees Fahrenheit, the planet is made up of water. But you think with that heat, the water would just evaporate. Well, its high atmospheric pressures stop its water from boiling. I should mention that the pressure is so strong, it could crush our bones if we went there. Now, in fact, its water isn't what we know as water. Theirs is more like this thick, hot ice. It's quite weird. Coming in at number 2, we have Jupiter. Jupiter, our solar system's massive gas giant. First, can we just talk about how big Jupiter is? It's 2.5 times more massive than all the other planets in the solar system combined. Compared to Earth, its mass is 318 times as massive as Earth. Now, on to visiting Jupiter. Well, if you do want to go there, guess what? It doesn't have a solid surface, so you would kind of just fall right through and bye-bye. On top of that, you would be frozen by its temperature, which is negative 162 degrees Fahrenheit, or negative 108 degrees Celsius. And to top it all off, you'd be exposed to very deadly radiation. And I'm pretty sure your head would just explode from its pressure. So, yeah, have fun visiting Jupiter. And in our number 1 spot, we have the black holes. Black holes scare the crap out of me. Seriously, just imagine Earth getting swallowed up by one. I know, it's highly unlikely, but still. Anyways, a black hole is a point in space where gravity is so strong that nothing around it can escape. Not even light. NASA states the gravity is so strong because matter has been squeezed into a tiny space. So if you went into space looking for one and got sucked into it, then you would be subjected to something called spaghettification. Basically, the gravity in the black hole would stretch you out like spaghetti. I mean, I love spaghetti, but I don't want to be turned into a human noodle. No thank you. So let me explain this process. Let's say you were headed feet first into the black hole. Your feet are physically closer to the black hole, so they would feel a stronger gravitational pull than your head would. So your feet are being pulled further in, which is stretching your body. Now your arms, because they aren't at the center of your body, would cause your body to be pulled inwards, making you appear super thin. So basically, if we did get sucked into a black hole, we would all be compressed and elongated, looking like human noodles. It's terrifying.
Starting us off at number 10 is the dark flow. Now this wasn't in the past because it's technically very much still happening, and it is borderline terrifying. Now I don't want to alarm anyone, but something bigger than anything we know of is sucking portions of the Milky Way galaxy just away, sucking it away. Milky Way, us, we are getting sucked away. We're just gone. Just wanted to emphasize that. Now in 2009, researchers discovered a cluster of galaxies that were moving at unparalleled speeds towards a patch of sky between the constellations Vela and Centaurus. There's just no reason for galaxies to be moving at that speed unless they're experiencing a huge pull from something beyond us. This process was dubbed dark flow, and scientists speculate that there are megastructures beyond our horizon that could be what's pulling them. Now others even say the megastructures are parallel universes. And surely you guys know what my next question from here is. Now if the Milky Way is getting sucked into the ether, how long till that reaches Earth? How much time does my ass have to planet hop? We need to do that ASAP, Rocky. Bye! And coming in at number 9 is the alien music, which unfortunately cannot be found on Spotify or Apple Music, so you guys just don't even bother trying to find it, you know? Just don't bother. Now back in 1969, 4 days after we stepped foot on the moon for the first time, astronauts John Young, Tom Strafford, and Gene Cernan were on the far dark side of the moon, and as Mufasa said to Simba, we don't go there. Now the three men were just chilling on the moon, taking some pictures of the craters, and drinking some grape juice when they started hearing a strange otherworldly sort of noise inside their headsets. Now the music continued for a good hour, and none of the men had heard these types of sounds before, and they knew no one would believe them if they said anything. They tried to find out where or what the music was, but they just simply couldn't. Decades later, the mystery was never solved, but some claim it was just sound coming from radio interference between spacecrafts, which I get, but how would 3 seasoned astronauts not know what that sounded like? Like, they probably would have heard that a billion times, so I mean, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. Sus. At number 8 we have space snakes. Now if you thought you were smart, let me just put you in your place real quick. You may as well just sit down right now. So this one comes from Dr. Story Musgrave, a man who has 6 academic degrees, was part of the Marine Corps, is a physician and mathematician, and he's a bloody NASA astronaut as well. And oh, he shares the record of most space flights ever taken. So I mean, this man has literally lived 9 lives in one and like saved some for the rest of us. Like, I'm just trying to get by at this point. Either way, Story said on 2 of his missions he saw something out there that he doesn't have an answer to. He saw a snake sort of thing, and it was about 6 to 8 feet long, it was rubbery, and it had internal waves inside of it. And it sort of just follows you for an extended period of time. He claims that being in space makes you see things you'd never imagine. Well, no shit. I didn't have to have 6 degrees to say that, and that he believes there are creatures out there much more developed than any of us. I mean, they've been there for 100 million years, I'd hope they're advanced as hell. I'd be disappointed if they weren't. Now honestly, my theory on the snake is that they're alien devices that just roam space and can detect spacecrafts in the area and sort of tail them and send information back to the alien HQ that deployed it. And I feel like that's a bang on theory. Like, go me. Yeah. Filling our number 7 slot is the near miss. So back in July of 2012, life as we know it was this close to being changed forever. This is how small my patience is when it comes to Che as well, just letting you know. Now the Earth narrowly, like barely by the skin of our teeth, missed the impact of an extreme solar storm, and not just any storm, the most powerful one we'd seen in 150 years. If it had hit Earth, we would have still been picking up the pieces right now. If you don't know what a solar storm is, another name for it is a geomagnetic storm, and it's basically when the Earth's magnetosphere experiences a temporary disturbance due to either a solar wind shockwave and or a cloud of magnetic fields. Now, solar storms threaten every form of high technology that we have. It starts off with an explosion that expends tons of X-rays and extreme UV radiation to Earth at light speed, cause screw us, right? If we had been hit by the storm, there would have been radio blackouts, satellites would have been blasted with energy and been damaged, GPS navigation just wouldn't work, and the world would have no power whatsoever. I mean, we missed it that time, but who knows if we'll be as lucky the next time. I frankly will be on Mars at that point, so I don't really give a even savage moments. Now at number 6 is the Cooper sighting. So Gordon Cooper is an astronaut that's flown the Gemini 5 and the Mercury 9. He was also the last American to ever spend time in space alone. Now in May of 1963 he was doing a circumnavigational trip around the Earth on the Mercury capsule, and when he was passing Perth he saw something. A massive green glowing object came straight for him at a speed he'd never seen before. It was real, it wasn't just a delusion, and the Muchie tracking station in Western Australia even picked it up on their radar, so it was very much there. Cooper reported it to NBC, but when he landed was told they couldn't question him about it. So that's just another thing they won't tell us. I feel like we should honestly just start rioting until governments all over the world stop keeping from us. I'm over it. Just tell us things. Hello. Expose the government, 2K19. Filling our number 3 slot now is the Black Hole of Doom. Ominous, isn't it? And it is. Now 2 years ago the Hubble Space Telescope found something that could be the death of us all. They found a black hole that can and does devour literally anything in its path. It weighs the equivalent of more than 1 billion suns, it can reach the speed of 5 million miles per hour, but don't worry guys, it's only 8 billion light years away from Earth. Well, that was 2 years ago, I don't know how much closer it is now, but I'm guessing it's closer. It's being manipulated by gravitational waves, which means it's only a matter of time before it breaks free from its own galaxy and just starts roaming the universe free fall. And if that's the case, we can say sayonara to the Milky Way, goodbye Pluto, guess you'll stay the dwarf planet till death, my man. Bye bye.
Number 10. Low gravity doesn't affect your bones and muscles. We know that humans do just fine in Earth's gravity. On the other hand, we know that human bones and muscles can atrophy terribly in zero gravity, as seen in experiments on the International Space Station. Astronauts on the ISS have to exercise for 2 hours a day to prevent muscle loss, but their bones still lose calcium over time, and they don't recover until they come back to Earth. Adding to this, we don't know how the human body will react on Mars, where gravity is only about 0.38 the strength of Earth. Many people have long assumed that humans can survive just fine in Martian gravity. It'll be just like Earth, only we can jump a little higher, but we don't actually know this for a fact. It might turn out that low Martian gravity is just as bad for human health as zero gravity. Mars's low gravity may also erode other capabilities that are crucial for everyday functioning. For instance, NASA has found that eyesight can mysteriously deteriorate in zero gravity. Astronaut John Phillips went from a perfect 20/20 to 2100 after just 6 months aboard the ISS. Astronauts also find it harder to sleep in zero gravity, and many passengers in space suffer from insomnia. Number 8. The sun is a big ball of fire. Okay, so this isn't all NASA's fault, but despite what you've been led to believe, the sun is not a ball of fire. There isn't any fire in the sun. Fire requires oxygen, and the sun is composed mostly of helium and hydrogen. In fact, the heat from the sun comes from something called nuclear fusion. The pressure and temperature in the sun's core causes the hydrogen atoms to fuse together into helium atoms. This process gives off the intense heat and light of the sun. People, including scientists, sometimes say that the sun burns hydrogen to make it glow, but that is just a figure of speech. Hydrogen really doesn't burn, it fuses into helium. Also, the sun itself is white, which means it contains all the colors in the visible spectrum. The sun appears orangish yellow because of the blue light it emits has a shorter wavelength and is scattered in the atmosphere, which is the same process that makes the sky appear blue. Number 7. Mars is the only other habitable planet. It's been said that
that Mars is the only other habitable planet, but that's not true. Kepler 186f is the first rocky exoplanet to be found within the habitable zone, as the region around the host star has the temperature that is right for liquid water. This planet is also very close in size to Earth. While planets have previously been found in the habitable zone, they are at least 40% larger in size than Earth, and understanding their makeup is challenging. Kepler 186f is more reminiscent of Earth. Although the size of Kepler 186f is known, its mass and composition are not. Previous research, however, suggests that a planet the size of Kepler 186f is likely to be rocky. Even though we may not find out about what's going on at the surface of this planet anytime soon, it's a strong reminder of why new technologies are being developed that will enable scientists to get a closer look at distant worlds, but we still have a lot to learn. So maybe one day the human race will be living on Kepler 186f. Number 6. Your rocket won't blow up before leaving Earth. Yeah, your rocket can actually explode before you even leave Earth. For example, Elon Musk's plan to go to Mars involves strapping a giant spaceship atop the biggest rocket that humanity has ever built. Because any rocket launch basically involves a long, controlled explosion, no matter how many safety tests are done beforehand, there is always a risk. If anything goes wrong, if the explosion gets out of control, the people strapped in that big container of fuel don't stand a chance. For context, NASA's Space Shuttle program carried 833 passengers between 1981 and 2011. Of those, 14 people died in explosions and 2 high-profile accidents, a fatality rate of 1.6%. That's more dangerous than driving, and it's even a bit riskier than climbing Mount Everest. Some of SpaceX's smaller Falcon 9 rockets have either exploded on the launch pad or blown up mid-flight as well, so safe to say getting to space is just as dangerous as being there. Number 5. Extended space travel doesn't affect DNA. It's not true. Astronaut Scott Kelly, who spent a year at the International Space Station in 2016, returned to find out that he was 2 inches taller than his departing height. The new physical differences between Scott and his identical twin brother, Mike, also an astronaut, were startling. Scientists compared the DNA of the two and found that besides growing 2 inches, Scott's gut bacteria were completely different and his gene expression had changed. Scientists concluded that the changes were caused by the stresses of space travel, which can cause changes in a cell's biological pathways. Although Scott eventually returned to his original height, his other genetic changes are seemingly irreversible, meaning Scott and his brother are no longer identical twins, which is insane. Number 4. You can only see the Great Wall of China from space. It's been said that the only man-made structure you can see from space is the Great Wall of China, but the visible wall theory was shaken after China's own astronaut, Yang Lui, said he couldn't see the historic structure. There was even talk about rewriting textbooks that supported the theory, a formidable task in Earth's most populous nation. The issue surfaced again after photos taken by Leroy Chiao from the International Space Station were determined to show small sections of the wall in Inner Mongolia about 200 miles north of Beijing. A photo was taken of it, but it wasn't the only thing seen. For years it's been said that the Great Wall of China is the only structure to be seen from space, but that isn't true. From the ISS about 250 miles up, you can see the Great Wall along with numerous other man-made structures, but it's definitely not the most visible imprint of man on our planet. Number 3. Space isn't dangerous. We all know that accidents happen and things can go wrong, but it seems like NASA never told their astronauts how bad things could get. Astronaut Scott Perinsky had to install a new module on the ISS that would serve as a node for the addition of future research laboratories. Part of the mission required changing the location of an array of solar panels. Things were going along really well until the crew inside commanded these large solar panels to extend. They got jammed up and the panels began to tear. It was unsafe to continue to extend this panel any further, and you couldn't retract it either. There was concern that if the astronauts even tried to undock the space shuttle, it might rip apart and hit the shuttle. After 72 hours of grueling work on the ground, NASA came up with a plan. Scott would have to travel further away from safety of an airlock than had ever been previously attempted. It wasn't only the distance that was nerve-wracking, as Scott explained, there was a real danger that we could do even worse damage to the space station. Then there was the potential risk to myself, because if there was any metal-to-metal connection with the solar panel or arcing, it could actually electrocute me or cause ignition in the 100% oxygen in my suit. All the tools I was working with had to be specially insulated. The metal parts of my spacesuit had to be wrapped in special special tape, he said. Thankfully, everything worked out and the mission was a success. Scott has said, "I still to this day think it's one of NASA's greatest accomplishments, but it's crazy that he had to go through that." Number 2. There's no life on the moon. When astronaut Neil Armstrong took a walk on the moon and became the first man to do so in 1969, many conspiracy theories came to light. For one, people claimed he didn't actually go to the moon and that the footage was recorded in a studio. Of the many conspiracy theories surrounding this moment, there's one that remains a mystery to date. During the Apollo 11 mission, after Neil landed on the moon, NASA claims to have lost transmission for roughly 2 minutes. And in a reportedly secret message to NASA, Neil said, "These babies were huge, sir. Enormous. Oh god, you wouldn't believe it. I'm telling you, there are other spacecrafts out here lined up on the far side of the crater's edge. They're on the moon watching us." Yep. Seems like Neil encountered some aliens, and I'm sure they never prepared him for that. And coming in at number 1 is the effect space has on you emotionally. Being in space is scary. Your safety is at risk both physically and emotionally. Astronaut Chris Hadfield said, "Sometimes we hear pings as tiny rocks hit our spaceship, and also the creaks and snaps of expanding metal as we go in and out of sunlight. The solar panels are full with tiny holes from the micrometeorites. I watched a large meteorite burn up between me and Australia, and to think that the hypersonic dumb lump of rock randomly hurtling into us instead sent a shiver up my back." Besides that, going into space can cause a lot of psychological issues like anxiety or depression. When actor William Shatner went up to space, he said this of his experience: "Everything I had thought was wrong. Everything I had expected to see was wrong. I had thought that going into space would be the ultimate catharsis of that connection I had been looking for between all living things, that being up there would be the next beautiful step to understanding the harmony of the universe. I discovered that the beauty isn't out there, it's down here with all of us. Leaving that behind made my connection to our tiny planet even more profound. It was among the strongest feelings of grief I have ever encountered. The contrast between the vicious coldness of space and the warm nurturing of Earth below me filled with overwhelming sadness. I learned later that I was not alone in this feeling. It is called the overview effect and is not uncommon among astronauts, including Yuri Gagarin, Michael Collins, Sally Ride, and many others. Essentially, when someone travels to space and views Earth from orbit, a sense of the planet's fragility takes hold. I cannot imagine the feelings of experiencing this, and it honestly sounds traumatizing."
Moving on to number 8, we have the Soyuz 11. On June 6, 1971, 3 Soviet cosmonauts launched into space. Their goal was to make a record for the longest time spent in space. Sadly, the mission failed and they became the first people to die in space. While in space, their breathing ventilation valve ruptured. All 3 sadly died from decompression. The last message they sent to Earth was them trying to scream for help, but they couldn't, so all they heard was them gasping for air and then weird popping sounds, which is from the air in their lungs expanding from the drop in air pressure and being exposed to the vacuum of space. The worst part? The spacecraft survived re-entry into Earth and landed perfectly, but when the hatch was open, they found the dead crew inside, their faces filled with dark blue splotches and blood dripping from their ears and noses. Moving on to number 7, we have the 13 signals. Back in 2019, the Chime Observatory in British Columbia, Canada picked up a very strange signal. They observed 13 of the same signals. These are what they call FRBs, or fast radio bursts. You're probably like, psh, okay, what's the big deal? Well, all of the 13 bursts came from the same location and they were 1.5 billion light years from Earth. And detecting that is super uncommon. It's only been seen once before. So 13 at the same location and time, that's suspicious. A number of people think that it was someone or something signaling for help. Could it be life on another planet? Aliens? Who knows? In our 6th spot today, we have the pattern. This next signal is pretty terrifying, and that's because it appears like clockwork. So basically, the signal will chime for 4 days, then after the 4th day, it stops making that weird noise. It stops for 12 days before picking up again and doing the same thing over and over again. It's thought that maybe on the days where it's not sending a signal towards us, it's actually sending a signal in another direction. Some believe that this is coming from aliens or other life forms, whereas others think that it's a star sending out radio waves and then orbiting by something that could be blocking the signal for 12 days and then returning to a position where we can hear it. It's just incredibly mysterious and we don't know what to make of it. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the mysterious flashes, another very strange and mysterious signal that we have yet to figure out. So astronomers have detected a signal that will beam to Earth for 90 days before being silent for 67 days. They noticed that this pattern would repeat every 157 days. Its cycle is that precise. The signal is being sent from a distant galaxy and this pattern has been happening since 2016. Furthermore, the signal is quite strong. It unleashes as much energy as our sun does in a century in just a few milliseconds. Like, what the actual hell is going on? Theory goes that aliens have created a powerful machine that has the capability of sending out this strong signal, but then it needs 157 days to recharge itself before continuing on. But who knows? In our 4th spot today we have the Eerie Sounds. This is quite possibly one of the creepiest things I have ever heard. So NASA decided to gather all of the creepy sounds that they have ever heard and put it all together on SoundCloud for us to enjoy. It literally sounds like aliens communicating with each other or something like that. NASA refers to these sounds as moans and whistles from the universe. Isn't that just great? Moving on to number 3, we have the pulse of radio waves. Just recently on April 28, 2020, 2 telescopes detected an intense pulse of radio waves. Now the signal only lasted for a millisecond, but astronomers were blown away by this and said it's a major discovery. Why? Well, this is the first time a fast radio burst has ever been detected so close to Earth. The signal came from the Milky Way. In fact, Chime wasn't even looking for it, but it was so loud and clear that they caught it anyways. They said that this burst is helping them discover what these things are and where they're coming from. Maybe we'll find out if there's aliens out there sooner than we thought. And in our number 1 spot today we have the final words. In 1967, Soviet test pilot, aerospace engineer, and cosmonaut Vladimir Komarov was sent into space on the Soyuz 1. However, the mission did not go according to plan and the spacecraft was extremely faulty. But Vladimir didn't really have a say in going on this mission. He kind of felt forced to do so. He said that if he didn't go, then the backup pilot would have had to go, which was his best friend, and he said he didn't want to do that to his friend, so he went and sacrificed his life instead. He knew the mission was going to fail, and he was right. Once he began to orbit Earth, a number of issues began to happen, such as the antennas not opening up properly. The worst came to him on his re-entry into Earth. On April 24th, 1967, during his re-entry, the parachutes failed to open. The signals he sent to Earth were haunting. On his way down, translators heard him say heat was rising in the capsule. He then began to curse the people who put him inside of this botched spaceship, saying they killed him. His final moments were him cursing and crying in rage. Imagine hearing that and listening to a man's final words. It's very haunting. Coming in at number 9, we have the solar winds. This is a terrifying sound that was captured by NASA satellites, and then they literally uploaded it to SoundCloud as part of their spooky Halloween playlist, and it's indeed spooky. Just listen to it. Obviously, it's mixed with other solar sounds, but it's still creepy. This is said to be the sound of solar winds passing by the satellites. They combined it all together and made this horrifying soundtrack. I'd rather they not. But I will say though, put headphones on and close your eyes and listen to it. The raindrop sounds are quite soothing to the ears, as weird and as creepy as they sound. Moving on to number 8, we have the Cassini spacecraft. The
The Cassini spacecraft was the 4th space probe to visit Saturn and the first to enter its orbit. And when it did, it picked up some weird signals. The signals were then converted into an audio file and shared online for us all to hear. Dude, I don't know what's going on with Saturn, but even scientists agreed that the sounds they recorded from Saturn are horrifying. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the roar of Jupiter. In June of 2016, NASA's Juno spacecraft crossed the boundary of Jupiter's magnetic field. What they captured sounds horrifying. They call it the bow shock. Bow shock is when the supersonic solar wind is heated and slowed by Jupiter's magnetosphere. It can be compared to a sonic boom on Earth. Let's listen to it. They named that the roar of Jupiter. Now that's not even the creepy sound. The next day they captured something even worse. That is the sound of the crossing of the magnetopause, which is the boundary between the sun's magnetic field and Jupiter's magnetic field. And at number 4 today we have the blinking stars. Now let's change it up a bit. This next signal is not one that you can listen to, but it's a one that you can see. Back in 2016, a group of Canadian astronomers saw 234 stars blinking at the same time. Now this is very odd. How is it that such a large amount of stars are blinking all together at the exact same time? One of the astronomers, Eric Trotter, is convinced that the blinking stars are a signal from aliens. He thinks that they are using some type of laser to communicate with us. They are flashing these lasers all at the same time to get our attention. So does that mean that they have 234 lasers, or just, I don't even know. But either way, this is really odd, and we still don't know what caused it or what it means. Moving on to number 3, we have the Quasi Crystal. This is something that crashed down onto Earth in 1979 Siberia. When it was first dug up, people were like, okay, it's just a hunk of rock. But no. Little did they know that it was something way more advanced. The Quasi Crystal had 60 points of rotational symmetry that seemed to be perfectly made by technology that is unknown to humans. This isn't something that could naturally form in nature as far as we know. It looks as if this was created by some sort of alien race and then launched out into space to educate another species on the ways of advanced technology. So far we have discovered no way to replicate this type of structure whatsoever. Also, this crystal dates back to 4.5 billion years ago, so it's really freaking strange. Is it true? Could it have been sent from another species? Coming in at number 2, we have the screams from Ganymede. Over the years, astronomers have recorded a number of freaky sounds from Jupiter's moon Ganymede. This sound I'm about to share with you is what was recorded when a spacecraft flew by Jupiter's moon. Honestly sounds like aliens talking to each other and then using some weird electronic device to send out beeping signals, like maybe it's a message. But that's not the worst part. They captured what sounds like someone screaming. That's horrifying. It sounds like someone yelling out in pain. Another time astronomers were shocked by the sounds from Ganymede were when they converted the chorus waves around the planet and moons into sound. Again, it sounds very frightening and bizarre, as if someone is trying to tell us something. And in our number 1 spot today we have Proxima Centauri. A number of scientists are dedicated to finding and investigating alien life. In fact, they believe that a signal from a nearby star was sent by aliens.
Basically, they received a narrow beam of radio waves coming from the direction of Proxima Centauri, a red dwarf star 4.2 light years away from Earth. It's the nearest star to the Sun. They claim that this signal is the first serious candidate since the WOW signal. If you don't know what the WOW signal is, I talked about it in part 1, so check it out. Anyways, let's listen to what they recorded. Scientists have yet to discover what was causing the signal. Now, that high-pitched buzzing sound continues on for a long time, then all of a sudden it changes very abruptly. Like, what the actual hell was that? I don't know, and I never want to hear it again. What makes things creepier is that at least 2 planets orbit this star. Those planets are believed to be habitable for certain life forms. So maybe something is out there living on those planets and sending us signals. Starting off this countdown, we have Jupiter's ionosphere. This eerie recording was recorded by NASA's Juno spacecraft in February of 2017. This is the sound of the plasma waves in Jupiter's ionosphere. And let me tell you, it's eerie. It starts off as just like a plain, almost static sound. Then it picks up and sounds like roars. Now that's not even that bad, I will admit. The freakiest part though is when it captured what sounded like someone moaning or groaning in pain. Listen carefully. It happened pretty fast, but you can hear like a sound. That same low grunt happened several other times throughout the recording, and they don't know what it's from. Obviously NASA is like, oh, it's just the natural sounds of Jupiter, but everyone else is like, aliens! In our 9th spot today we have the knocking sound. Back in 2003, astronaut Yang Liwi became China's first man in space. In 2016, Yang revealed during interviews how terrified he actually was up in space by himself. In fact, he told his creepy story of the unknown knocking sound he heard. So basically he claims that he heard, and I quote, someone knocking the body of the spaceship just as knocking an iron bucket with a wooden hammer. It neither came from outside nor inside the spaceship. He looked outside of the porthole but never saw anything tapping on the spaceship. Since his return to Earth, they still haven't figured out what caused this sound. They even tried to recreate the sound and scenario, but all attempts failed. The only theory is that it happened as a result of the expansion or contraction of the spaceship, or ghost aliens messing with us. In our 8th spot today we have the Roswell Rock. This is an object that is believed to have been from space. I mean, we get pieces of meteorites all the time, so this space rock shouldn't be unusual, right? Wrong. This rock is unusually smooth and uniform in color. It's just way too perfect. On top of it, the rock has a design protruding from the surface of it. Now, it was given the name the Roswell Rock because it was found in Roswell, New Mexico, which has had its fair share in alien UFO sightings. So it might have been left by some ETs or something. Upon analyzing the rock, researchers have realized that the rock's design actually matches a crop circle that was found in England in 1996, which makes this whole thing that much weirder. Some are convinced that this rock is some message sent by aliens. Not only that, but the rock has some weird magnetic properties to it. It's unlike anything they have ever seen before. Linda Moulton, along with other researchers, believe that it's some message sent from aliens or someone or something in space. As for what it means, one theory is that the rock contains a date for some event that has or will happen. Moving on at number 7, we have Europa. Europa, otherwise known as Jupiter 2, is the smallest of the 4 moons orbiting Jupiter. Back in 2017, when the Galileo spacecraft flew by the moon, it picked up some weird signals. Kinda creepy and alien-like, not gonna lie. But wait until you hear the screams it picked up. Yes, you heard me correctly. It picked up something that sounds like screams. NASA claims it's just the sounds of the plasma waves interacting with Earth's magnetic fields that somehow created a strange whistling noise that sounds like an alien screaming. Or it could just be an alien screaming. Coming in at number 6, we have the Voyager plasma sounds. That's one way to hurt your eardrums. This sound was recorded by Voyager 2 as it passed by the outer magnetosphere in 1979. This is the sound created, and I quote, "at a special frequency in the plasma with a magnetic field. The frequency is set by the number of electrons in a given volume and the strength of the magnetic field." That's what NASA had to say about it. Now the last couple of seconds sound almost like birds singing in the morning, but as we all know, there are no birds in space. Unless, are there alien birds? We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Dropa discs. Hands down, this object came from space and is a message sent by aliens. So in 1938, an archaeologist led an expedition near the Bayanhar Mountains in China. While there, they came across some ancient caves that had these weird discs buried in there. These discs were over 10,000 years old and resembled phonograph records. So they were like, wait a minute, what if it is a record and holds some kind of message? So then they were placed on this like special turntable, and the discs would vibrate / hum in a weird rhythm as if an electric charge was passing through them. To make things weirder, the discs had images carved into them. The drawings told a story about a spaceship that crashed into the mountains. Coincidence? I think not. So theory goes that these records contained some sort of message from aliens that we have yet to solve. Moving on to number 4, we have the Hubble. When I say that this is the scariest space recording I have ever listened to, this is the scariest space recording I have ever listened to. So that was recorded by the NASA Hubble Space Telescope. It's the sounds from the Helix Nebula, which is 655 light years away. Now space has no sounds, and clearly these audio recordings dispute that, but no, what they did is use sonification to figure out what it would sound like if it did produce sounds. And then this clip went viral on Twitter because it sounds like a scary woman screaming. At first, I thought it sounded like that damn ghost from Scooby-Doo. You know, hey!
Get out of here!
But then you hear that scream, and that's enough to send shivers down anyone's spine. In our 9th spot, we have the neutron star. In September of 2016, astronomers observed something that they had never seen before. They saw a long stream of infrared light coming from a neutron star 800 light years away. Now, neutron stars normally emit radio waves or higher energy radiation. Signals from neutron stars have been observed before, but they have never seen infrared light coming from one. On top of it, this light spread across a large stretch of space, which was also unusual. To this day, no explanation for this signal has ever been produced. In our 8th spot today, we have the Jupiter waves. The recording I'm about to share with you was recorded by NASA's Juno spacecraft as it was observing the plasma wave signals from Jupiter's ionosphere. And turns out, Jupiter sounds creepy as hell. Take a listen. That's no plasma waves, okay? That's the sound of alien life forms screaming for help. And guess what? NASA is still investigating these sounds because they also found them to be quite weird and spooky as hell. So they're trying to find out the exact source of these sounds. Because maybe they believe it's coming from aliens too, or something like that. Moving on at number 7, we have the face on Mars. Now, if you're into space, then chances are you have already seen this terrifying photo of what appears to be a humanoid face on Mars. It honestly gives me the creeps. So in 1976, NASA Viking 1 orbiter flew by Mars and captured this eerie looking thing on Mars' surface. People were automatically freaked out because it looks like it has 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth. Rumors began to fly that this was a signal from aliens. That, or this was an alien-built monument on Mars. Or it was their way of trying to communicate with others, like us. Maybe this face is of someone the aliens worship. Who knows? An alien god, maybe? Maybe. Or is it just something that naturally formed on Mars due to erosion and all that? You decide what you want to believe. Coming in at number 6, we have the Morse code. Here's another message that was apparently sent by aliens. So in 2016, NASA's Mars orbiter took some photos of Mars when it flew by. Well, it managed to capture what looked like Morse code. On Mars, there were a series of raised dark dunes that looked like lines and dashes of Morse code. Unfortunately, it looks like alien Morse code is different than ours because it's spelt out gibberish. Unless it's not gibberish and that's an alien language that we don't speak. Maybe they don't speak English. The only complete English word was C, and not like S-E-A, but C, which is kind of creepy. Like, what do they want us to see? We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the surface of Mars. This recording was captured by InSight's robotic arm as its camera was scanning the surface of Mars on March 6, 2019. It literally sounds like a scuba diver breathing underwater. At other points, it almost sounds like a man coughing. I don't know about you, but I do not enjoy listening to that. It sounds hella creepy. I don't know what's going on with Mars, but I don't like the sound of that. Moving on to number 4, we have more creepy sounds from Mars. This was recorded by NASA's InSight lander on November 26, 2018. And it managed to record the first ever sounds of Martian winds on Mars. Sounds like the aliens on Mars are just having fun, or they're taking a bongo class or something like that. Or they're playing Plinko, you know that game with the Now, at one point in the recording, these clanking sounds started to speed up. They would happen more frequently and faster, and they got louder. As for what's causing this sound, some say it's some sort of signal sent by aliens. Of course, it's aliens, like everything else on this list. But in fact, the clanking might be Morse code, or some other kind of code that we have yet to figure out. Moving on at number 3, we have the bright light. When I say that something sus is happening on Mars, something sus is happening on Mars. Back in 2014, NASA's Curiosity rover took a number of photos on Mars. In one of the photos, you could see a beam of light shooting up from Mars's horizon. A number of UFO believers believe that this is evidence of alien activity. Like they're sending that beam as a signal to us. They're like, hey, we're over here. NASA scientist Doug Ellison said that the light was caused by a cosmic ray hit, which is, terrifying on its own. It was so powerful, it caused high energy particles to fly through space. I personally just like the alien theory better. Moving on to number 2, we have the bizarre star. And I'm so happy that I came up with that because it rhymed and it's very satisfying. Bizarre star. A couple of years ago, astronomer Tabitha Boyajian and her colleagues saw a weird star that left them all perplexed. They named the star KIC84C285, what a name. But they gave it the nickname Tabbys star. Now this star was bizarre because the star would dip in brightness. Now there wasn't a pattern to it. It would happen at irregular intervals and for odd lengths of time. For example, it would be shining bright and then all of a sudden it would dip in brightness. So people don't know what's causing this flux in brightness, which is why it was also given the name the WTF star, standing for where's the flux? Not what you thought it was gonna be, was it? Anyways, they don't know why this is happening to this star. They thought, okay, maybe a planet in orbit is blocking it. But it can't be a planet because no planet is large enough to block that much light from its star. So like, WTF is it? Like for real. Some believe that this is a signal sent by aliens. Are we surprised? No. Anything unexplainable that happens in space is blamed on aliens.